St. George is one of the most recognisable saints in Christian tradition, famously known for the legend in which he slays a dragon to save a town and a princess. Though the story is widely seen as mythical, St. George himself was a real historical figure, a Roman soldier of Greek and Palestinian heritage who lived during the 3rd century. He served in the Roman army under Emperor Diocletian and was martyred for refusing to renounce his Christian faith. Because of his bravery and devotion, he became a revered figure in Christian Europe, and by the Middle Ages he was adopted as the patron saint of several countries, including England. St. George's Cross, a red cross on a white background, was used as a battle emblem during the Crusades, and eventually became associated with English national identity. By the late Middle Ages, it had become England's de facto national flag, and the 23rd of April, St. George's Day, became a day of celebration for the English people. Today, the flag of St. George is a familiar sight in England, especially during major sporting events like the World Cup or European Championship. Supporters often paint their faces with the Red Cross or drape themselves in the flag to cheer on the national team. For many, it's a show of national pride, a way to celebrate English identity and unity. However, in recent decades, the flag has taken on a more complex and troubling meaning. A number of far-right groups, football hooligans, and self-proclaimed patriots have co-opted the flag of St. George, using it as a symbol of exclusion rather than inclusion. In these hands, the flag becomes a visual shorthand for nationalism, not in the benign sense of cultural pride, but in an aggressive, often racist and xenophobic sense. These groups use it to promote the idea that true Englishness must exclude immigrants, refugees, and anyone who doesn't fit their narrow definition of British identity. This has led to a perception problem. For some, seeing the flag of St. George can evoke not pride, but discomfort or even fear. It's become a symbol that, in certain contexts, is associated with intimidation, especially when displayed en masse by groups that engage in hate speech or violence. The flag that once stood for bravery, faith and protection has in some circles become a badge of division. That doesn't mean the flag or the figure of St. George is beyond redemption. Many people are now working to reclaim the symbol, using it to represent a more inclusive vision of Englishness, one that honours diversity and stands against hatred. After all, the real St. George was a man of Middle Eastern descent, who died defending his beliefs. If he were alive today, it's likely he'd be appalled by the actions of those who use his name to justify bigotry. St. George may be best known today as England's patron saint, but his legacy stretches far beyond the British Isles. Across continents and cultures, George is remembered, not just as a slayer of dragons, but as a symbol of courage, sacrifice, and even romance. Let's start with the countries that claim him as their patron. In England, of course, St. George's Red Cross flies proudly every April 23rd. Though his ties to England came centuries after his death, he became a figure of chivalry and Christian virtue, eventually adopted as the patron saint during the Crusades. Even today, St. George's Day remains a quiet, yet enduring celebration of English heritage. Travel east to the country of Georgia, and you'll find a nation literally named after him, though the link is more symbolic than historical. Here, St. George is revered as a national protector. In fact, Georgia celebrates him twice a year, with churches, festivals, and deep religious devotion. In Ethiopia, St. George is more than a saint, he's a national icon. The famous St. George's Cathedral in Addis Ababa is a spiritual and political landmark, and many Ethiopians revere him as a symbol of resistance and independence. His image, riding horseback and slaying evil, appears in countless churches and homes. And then there's Portugal, where he's honoured as a patron of the military. Soldiers have long invoked his name for protection in battle, and although the public celebration isn't as grand, St. George's influence is still felt in the nation's religious and cultural identity. In Catalonia, a region of Spain, St. George becomes something else entirely, a romantic hero. April the 23rd is known as La Diada de Sant Jordi, where lovers exchange roses and books in the streets of Barcelona. It's a day of beauty, literature, and love, a reminder of how saints can evolve with culture. In Greece, he's honoured not just as a saint, but as a Gios Georgios, a champion of rural communities. Each spring, villages host festivals in his name, celebrating the saint who protects their flocks, harvests, and families. Across the Orthodox world, from Russia to Serbia, St. George is a warrior saint. He's often depicted slaying a dragon, not just in myth, but as a metaphor for defeating evil. In Moscow, he rides proudly on the city's coat of arms. Even in Palestine, in the town of Al-Qaeda near Bethlehem, St. George transcends religion. Both Christians and Muslims celebrate him here, visiting his shrine and asking for healing and protection. It's one of the few saints embraced so widely across faiths. Whether he's a national patron, a military protector, a dragon-slaying icon, or a symbol of love and literature, St. George is more than just a saint. He's a cultural chameleon, reimagined across history and borders. And perhaps that's his greatest power, not the legend of the dragon, but the way his story has been shared, reshaped, and celebrated by so many different people around the world. So when you see someone wrapped in the flag of St. George, ask yourself, is it just a symbol? Or is it something we all have the power to redefine? Thanks for watching. How do you feel when you see the flag of St. George? Let me know in the comments. Don't forget to like and share the video and subscribe if you are new here. See you again soon.